On the night of his arrest, Jesus delivers a final testimony to his disciples to help them in the days ahead. Here he repeats the most important of all his commands, that they love one another. A reading from the Gospel according to John, the 15th chapter. Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands, so that you may love one another." The word of the Lord. Please be seated. This past Tuesday, children's author Maurice Sendak died. You might have heard that. His best-known book is Where the Wild Things Are. And I can't think about that book without remembering having it read to me by my mom. So I've been reflecting this week on moms and children's books and moms reading books to their children. And isn't that one way that a mom expresses her love? By reading the same book to her children a gazillion times? There was one that we had in our home called Taxi Dog. Jacob wanted us to read it a gazillion times a day. And I was talking with Gail last night. I think she threw it away, so she wouldn't have to. I don't know where it is. And I said, "Really? You threw it away?" Anyways, so my thoughts are with moms and reading children's books. And of course, my mind had to go to the greatest of all, Dr. Seuss, and his lyrical and rhyming books like The Cat in the Hat. And then, you're getting kind of stream of consciousness here. Then I started thinking about another Dr. Seuss-like author, P.D. Eastman. I think I like him just because it's P.D., but P.D. Eastman, who wrote Go Dog Go, and Are You My Mother? Are You My Mother? Do you remember that one? Do you remember your mom reading it to you as I do, or do you perhaps remember reading it to your children? I remember both. It's the story of a baby bird who hatched out of his egg in the nest while his mama was away from the nest looking for food. This baby bird falls out of the nest and immediately begins looking for his lost mother. But he doesn't have a clue what his mom looks like. So he goes up and asks anything and everything that he sees. Are you my mother? He asks dogs and cats and planes and boats and even a big dirt digger. Are you my mother? Of course, it all ends, well, the snort, that's the dirt digger, lifted the bird back up to its nest where it's reunited with its mother. Like that baby bird, who doesn't or didn't long for the love of a mother? The kind of love we wish all moms exhibited. The kind of love that reflects the overwhelming love of God expressed in Jesus. The kind of love that surrounds us every day. The kind of love that we want to think of when we think of mothers. Love's the topic of our assigned to Bible readings as well. In the story of Jesus' life as recorded by John, Jesus addresses or issues his command that his followers love one another as Jesus has loved them. Now I want to put this in context. Actually, you should put it up there. Last week, we read the first part of this 15th chapter according to the Gospel of John. We heard Jesus say, "I am the vine and you are the branches." And the idea is this: to be the living, growing, fruit-bearing organism which we are called to be, we need to be connected to Jesus. Now in this next part, which just flows right on, Jesus is putting some flesh on this image of bearing fruit. The fruit that we are to bear, he says, is love. The fruit that we are to bear is love. And it's not the kind of love that Hollywood dishes out on the big screen or on the small screen for that matter. It's not the kind of love that makes our hearts go pitter-patter and takes our breath away when we look at our own beloved. It's much deeper than that. It's a love where selflessness and sacrifice and service are central. This is an important teaching that Jesus is giving us. This is his commandment. And it comes in what we call the final discourse. It's Jesus' last conversation with his followers. He's getting ready now, and he's preparing his disciples to face the cross in Jerusalem, where he will live out and die out the greatest act of sacrificial love ever. Dying in our place and for our sake. And who doesn't long for that kind of love? Who doesn't long to experience it? People, this is the love that God has for you. Love that sent Jesus to the cross for you. Love that looks like a parent always on the lookout for a wandering son or daughter and ready to embrace him or her. Love that looks like a woman turning her house upside down as she searches for that one lost coin. And people, that love is for you. It's a love that flows to you from Jesus. Like life that flows to the branches from the vine. But it is also a love that is to flow through you to others. Jesus says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." And please hear, it's not love others and then I, Jesus, will love you. It's quite the opposite. Jesus says, "I have loved you. Now you love others." And the place that we start is in the church. Saint Cyprian, he was an African bishop in the 3rd century. St. Cyprian said this: "It is impossible to have God as our Father if we do not have the church as our mother." It's impossible to have God as our Father if we do not have the church as our mother. Now, don't misunderstand. We don't worship the church. I want to be clear about that. But the church is to be the place, the safe, nurturing place where we grow and develop. Leonard Sweet, an author, calls the church the womb for gestating discipleship and for birthing new generations of Christians. The church is the womb for gestating discipleship and for birthing new generations of Christians. Mother Church, a place for learning and practicing lives of love. A place where we love men and women, boys and girls we see and encounter on a regular weekly basis. We learn and we practice lives of love with one another. Even if someone smells funny. Or even, and they might be because they didn't shower or because of the perfume or the cologne that they're wearing. Even if they can't sing. I know. Even if they fidget and whisper all during worship. Even if they vote differently than we do. Even if they make a lot more or a lot less money than we do. We're to love one another, not tolerate one another. We're to love one another, not put up with one another. We're to love one another, not simply put our time in on a Sunday morning with one another. We're to love one another. Scripture says this: if we cannot love our brothers and sisters in Christ whom we can see, how can we love God whom we cannot see? Let that rest with you for a moment here. If we cannot love the people we can see, how can we say we love God whom we cannot see? And so we come here to our mothering church to experience time and again the love of God coming to us unconditionally in bread and wine and water and the Word. We come here to experience it, to learn it. We come here to hear of the overwhelming love of God. We come here to our mothering church to learn and to practice lives of love, bearing that fruit of love to others, even as our mothering church bears us, like our mothers bore us. So what's this loving one another look like? What does loving brothers and sisters we can see look like? 3 years ago, I preached a sermon series on the one another's in Scriptures as a way of getting at what this loving one another looks like. We are to be devoted to one another. We are to give preference to one another. We are to accept one another. We are to build one another up. We are to serve one another, pray with one another, be hospitable to one another. We are to encourage one another. Is that what your life looks like? In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we get another picture of what love looks like, what our lives of love are to look like. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. Love is not irritable or resentful. Love does not rejoice in the wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. It's not just a wedding text. Is that what your life looks like? Love one another, I find, is easy to say, but hard to do. More often than not, this text and texts like it convict me and drive me to confession. I've not lived that way. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Strengthen me. And maybe they work that way for you as well. But may these texts also give us hope and inspire us. For never does Jesus say, you're on your own. Go do that or else. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. As I said, this commandment of loving one another presupposes that we are already and still connected to the source of our life and love, Jesus, as branches are connected to a vine. And it's here in our mothering church, surrounded by brothers and sisters, that we grow and develop, learn and practice lives of love. And it is from here that we are sent to live and to share that love with people all throughout our community and the world. And can you imagine? Can you imagine if the community hears that this is a place where we genuinely love one another? Can you imagine what would happen if that's what the community hears about Salem? Can you imagine if the community experiences the genuine love of God coming to them through people of this place? Can you imagine what would happen? Because everyone longs for love of a mother, of God. People would be drawn to the mother church to learn of and to be nurtured in the love of Jesus. So what better place to celebrate Mother's Day than in the mother church? The community that exists because of Jesus' love, and the community that exists to spread Jesus' love to the world. So that when someone comes a-looking and asks, are you my mother? Of the church, of this church, the answer that they get and experience is yes. 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 Say yes with me.